Okay, guys, 2021 is now underway. While you guys are sitting around at home this winter thinking of things to do, why not join a great group of people doing great things for the hunting community? I'm talking about BC's Interior chapter of SCI. You guys can check them out on our webpage. We have a link that connects you to them. While you guys are there, be sure to check out all the new gear we have out. Pick yourself up a new tee, hat, or hoodie. We even have some women's gear up there now, so be sure to check that out. On this episode, I'm joined by Ben Berukoff. Ben is the owner of Canadian Wildlife Capture. This is an episode I think you guys are really going to like.
Good morning, Kevin.
Welcome to the show, Ben.
Thanks for having me, Kevin. Good morning.
Yeah, you bet. So Ben, maybe before we get into to what you're doing now, maybe you could tell us a bit about your background, that kind of thing, who you are and where you grew up.
Sure, yeah. My background, born and raised Cranbrook, East Kootenay kid. Grew up hunting, fishing with my dad and my mom as well. We spent our childhood outside every minute that we could. I got one sister. She's a couple years older than me, and we grew up camping pretty much all summer long, every weekend, spending every time that we could outside. We lived in town. We didn't have a farm or anything or horses. We sort of spent, like I say, everything outside. And I never really got into serious hunting, I guess you'd call it, until I sort of moved out of my house. Like, my parents would always take us out hunting, pretty much for, just road hunting. My dad and I would always shoot a bunch of grouse, and we would shoot some small whitetails and maybe a big one if we got real lucky. And we'd always put in for mule deer doe tags and go where we could see the most deer. It was all about filling the freezer, and that's all we ate for red meat was wild game and stuff. And as I grew up, I got more and more interested into maybe more backcountry adventure style hunting and different species. And when I got to 18 and had that freedom of a vehicle and hunting away from my parents, a good friend of mine, Brett Watson, introduced me to elk hunting, and I guess that kind of changed my life. And he took me out one day and he said, I've been seeing some elk cross the highway on my way to work every morning. Let's go out there and see if we can find one. We always bought an elk tag when I was a young kid, but we never, I think I got a couple of LEHs for cow elk. We harvested those. But aside from that, never really got into serious elk hunting. And so Brad took me out, and we ended up calling in this just a ginormous 7-point bull in a short period of time. We didn't harvest the bull. We just saw its antlers just coming over this little ridge, but it was right there, 20 yards. And that kind of, that changed my, my life, I think, right there. I was instantly addicted to elk hunting and that interactive type of hunting with elk.
Yeah, man, elk,
and
they definitely have that effect on people. That's for sure. I remember my first elk hunt. My very first elk hunt, not the first day, but our first trip out elk hunt, and I went with my cousin, and I got an elk, which is pretty amazing. And then it took me a few years after that to get another one. But yeah, that first interaction with them is something else. That's for sure.
Yeah, I agree. So interactive.
Yeah.
They're a majestic animal in their own right too. The places they live, right? They're very adaptable. They can live at the top of the mountains. They can live in your backyard, farmer's field. Pretty cool animal. I love elk. Always have a passion for elk, and that's kind of what set me on different styles of hunting. I think was right there. I was about 18 years old, I guess, and been into hunting and fishing though my whole life. And Cranbrook was a great place to grow up doing that stuff. That's for sure.
Yeah. No, that's a nice area down there. So you still hunt. You get out do any hunting this year?
Yeah, absolutely. Probably this year, 2020, was maybe the highlight of my hunting adventures. I wasn't growing up, always hunting elk. I was a passionate elk hunter, had some good friends in Cranbrook there, lived there until, maybe 14 years ago, I guess, and still went back every year. But I never really got introduced to sheep hunting until maybe more recent years, maybe 6 or 7 years ago. Just because I was always chasing elk, I think. And some of my friends there in Cranbrook, they went off sheep hunting, Dall sheep up and other places, and stones, of course, and bighorns and the coonies. And I just never really got into it, and until recent years. And a really good friend of mine and I had been talking about going on a stone sheep hunt. And so this year, well, we started the planning a couple year and a half ago, I guess. And we talked about where we should go, and through doing different wildlife capture stuff, like you get to like know where more animals are, or where it might be a good spot, or you talk to more people, or you talk to outfitters and stuff. And so came up with this wild idea to hike into some godforsaken valley after getting dropped off by a float plane. And I didn't even know if we could get in there, but it's an area that's surrounded by quality sheep. Some of the outfitters in the surrounding area at least have been harvesting big rams. So we just went in it for an adventure. We just wanted to hike our butts off and see some country, and neither one of us really care if we actually shoot anything. Well, we booked a plane through a friend and started hitting the gym every single day for a year. And we went up there for the opener, and we got dropped off in the plane, I think, on the 20th of July. Took us 4 days to kind of get into where we want to. Of course, we were hunting a little bit on the way in, but it was just a bunch of just slogging. And like I say, I'd never heard of people going into this place or anything. There's no trails or horse trails or nothing. It took us about 4 days to get in there of hard going. Both of us pretty good shape.
Yeah.
And we got in there. We saw some sheep for sure. We saw a bunch of rams, but nothing big at all. And we saw a couple of maybe legal rams, but that's not what we were looking for. We were just, like I say, we're in there for the adventure and just, going out there for what sheep hunting's all about, just being out in that country and stuff. And we kept pushing further and further. We came up with an idea that maybe we'd come out a different way that we went in, but we were a little bit leery about that because it was a pretty intensive hike so far. On day 8, we were just moving camps, and my buddy there, he said, there's a caribou running down that ridge up ahead. And I put up my binoculars. I said, it's a sheep. I said, it's a ram. Actually, there's 2 rams.
Wait.
So yeah, pulling out the spotter. We just had brought one spotter. We went in as light as we could just because we knew it was going to be a grunt. So he pulled out the spotter. By then, this ram had come right skyline, 550 yards, right skyline. And I instantly knew, like, there was no question that this is a legal ram plus a whole bunch. And so I was like, man, that's a ram right there. Like, this is the biggest ram I've ever seen. And by then my buddy's got the spotter out, and he's like, he says same thing. His jaw is dropped. He's like, this is the biggest ram I've ever seen in my life. And this is a sheep guy. He's a sheep biologist. He's done his master's in stone sheep, and he guides for Arctic Red in his spare time. And he says, that's the biggest sheep I've seen. It's like, yeah, I know, buddy. We'll never see this again. So it's 550 yards. The 2 rams, they drop into this gully. We're not sure. They disappear. We're not sure if they're going to come out low or high. My buddy thinks high. I think low. We're like, well, let's just kind of close the distance a little bit, and we'll keep watching where they come out. And it's blowing like 30, 40 kilometers an hour, just cranking winds. Blue sky, we're just cranking winds. And we kind of angling up, because they might come out on this trail. We think up maybe, and I'm still thinking down. Well, they come out down below. So they get set up on a rock, range it 330 yards, and they're on the move. Like, they're moving valleys. I don't know if there was other hunters in the area. We didn't see anybody, but I line up and think, Ben, this is it. This is all this. Everything's on the line here. The ram stopped. My buddy says, well, aim like 2 feet in front of it because it's blowing that hard. And I was like, oh, man, I don't know, 2 feet, like this 300 yards at 2 feet, that seems like insane. So I kind of cut the difference, and I aim about 12 inches in front of his body, sort of upwind. And I was just about to pull the trigger because he stopped for a second, and there's 3 blades of grass just in front of the barrel. I thought, don't mess this up, Ben. Take it. It's all or nothing here. And so I busted 3 blades of grass off. Line up again, and he started moving a little bit again and stopped again, sort of broadside. And I just sort of eased that trigger and let it surprise me. And if I didn't make just a solid shot, and it was one shot, and that was it. So That was.
Wow.
I mean, I'll probably never see a ram of that size. It ended up scoring. Ross Mandis scored it in Victoria. Boone and Crockett final score was 175 and 2/8.
Wow, just a
A
tank.
gigantic stuff. Yeah, huge. Yeah,
Oh.
I'd be lucky if I ever see a ram like that again in my life.
Yeah, man,
I feel so lucky. Yeah.
that's gonna be tough to top. What do you got planned for 2021?
Yeah. Well, I just sent off my my doll sheep draw tag for the Tatsini, so we'll see. I got a bighorn about 5 years ago, and so I got my 2 more for 4.
Yeah.
So I'm planning to win a desert sheep hunt because I'll never be able to afford it. So I plan on winning one. So I keep buying tickets.
Yeah, man, I'm always putting in for those tickets too.
Yeah.
One day.
Yeah, somebody's got to win it, right?
Yeah,
and it all
exactly.
goes for a good cause.
Yeah, yeah, no,
for a good cause.
It definitely does. It definitely does. So, yeah, man, that's quite an adventure, and you live quite an adventure day to day. You're a helicopter pilot.
Yep, I started flying helicopters in 2002, and prior to that, I was working in the bush. I did some falling and bucking, running a cat, skin logs and stuff. Before that, somehow I got in my mind that I wanted to get out of forestry and get into flying helicopters because that seemed like a sort of the ultimate machine to run. I like sort of operating machines, and so I went and I had to borrow as much as I could from the bank and get a student loan for as much as I could. I sold my truck and saved another bit of money to get my license, it took quite a while there to save enough money. But 2002 went and got my commercial license, and my dad was always bugging me. He says, "Well, what happens when it doesn't work out? What happens if you can't get it done?" I said, "Dad, I got everything into this. It's got to work out." And so I took my license in 2002, went on a bit of a road trip trying to find a job. And helicopter pilot's a tough field to break into. There's lots of work for experienced pilots, but it's one of those things that if you never get the opportunity, how do you ever get the experience? And so it's just getting the foot in the door, finding that right opportunity, and then not letting that opportunity slip away. I lucked out.
Yeah, I got a couple friends that they're established helicopter pilots now, but I remember when they were first getting into it, that was one of their biggest struggles was getting flight time and getting a job. Exactly like you said, how do you get flight hours if no one's going to give you the chance? So it's tough.
Yeah, tough goal. I ended up coming back to Cranbrook after I went on a bit of a road trip there, dropping off resumes, and there was a 212 parked at the local operator, Bighorn Helicopters in Cranbrook. And it wasn't a local helicopter that I'd seen before. So I went down there, and the guys were just setting up to wash the helicopter. It was at the end of the day, and man, I just picked up that wash broom and I just started washing that helicopter and just introduced myself. I said, "Hey, I just finished my commercial license just like five days ago." And they said, "Really?" They said, "Oh, yeah, we're from Powell River. We're here doing some heli logging." And I said, "Oh, I just stopped in Powell River 2 months ago when I was visiting my uncle at Easter, and I stopped in at your guys' hangar, and I introduced myself to the boss." And they said, "Well, call the boss up because we need a co-pilot tomorrow." So I called the owner at the time up, and I said, "You remember me? I stopped in there 2 months ago and just said hi, and you said you'll never hire low-time pilots." I said, "So you remember me?" He says, "Yeah, I do remember you." And he says, "Yeah, we need a co-pilot tomorrow. Hop in."
Oh, no way.
Right.
How's that for timing?
Yeah, just the right place, right time. Talking to as many people as you can, and that was my opportunity. So I started doing a co-pilot in a heli logging machine, and it was awful. It was I was puking my guts out like pretty much every day. It's like being on a roller coaster for hours, and it was never really enjoyable. I learned a lot of stuff, that's for sure, but I just never gave up. I was making next to no money at all, working 30 days a month and like 14 hours a day. But I just never gave up. I said, "This is my end. Like, I can't let it slip away. It'll turn into something." So I did that for about a year, and it was good. Like, it wasn't all bad, that's for sure, but it was my foot in the door.
Yeah.
It was my foot in the door for sure.
So those hours as a co-pilot, do they help you accumulate flight time?
Not exactly. Can't log them as piloting command time, but the stuff that you learn, I got to fly quite a bit. Like, I fly the crew back and forth to the job site each day, excuse me, got into dropping the guys off on the helipads, like the riggers, the ground crew. And it was experience and knowledge that goes a long ways, I would say. Like anybody can fly a helicopter. It's no different than driving a car. Like if you can keep a car between the yellow line and the white line on the road, well, you can fly a helicopter. It's not rocket science by any means. It's to be a successful pilot, you need good judgment, and you just need somebody to teach you. It's just like riding a bike when you're a kid. It seems impossible at first, but once you stop having to think about what the controls do, then relatively easy, I would say. But the mistakes, or there's no forgiveness there. So if you make mistakes or bad judgment,
you're done.
Bad errors, well, you're done. Yeah, exactly. So that experience and knowledge that I learned doing that co-pilot for Helilogging was huge. And so when that job kind of dried up, the guys at Ocean View Helicopters here in Powell River, they said, well, why don't you come out to the coast and we'll get you flying the Hughes 500 and doing stuff. So it was a slow progression. It seemed like it took forever to really build up that first 1,000 hours, which is sort of your magic. Once you have 1,000 pilot in command hours in a helicopter, you can start to do most jobs. You got that experience, knowledge, confidence to go out and do most jobs. Maybe not most jobs, but a bunch of jobs anyway. It took probably like 4 years, I guess, to get there.
Yeah, well, the stuff you're involved with now, that's no easy feat. It's you started the Canadian Wildlife Rescue or the Canadian Wildlife Capture. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yep. So Canadian Wildlife Capture is a small business that I started in 2012, and it was maybe not by accident, but I think wildlife capture was something I was always intrigued about, something I was always interested in, and something that I wanted to pursue, I guess, in some ways. But when I started flying, it was never my goal. It was never my objective. I just focused on, just flying, just doing whatever kind of jobs came up. In probably 2010 or somewhere around there, I met a guy through my wife and his wife, and we had kids at the same time, so they had sort of a baby group. So I met this guy, Andrew Walker, which is the same friend that I went on the Stone Sheep hunt.
Oh, yeah.
We're good buddies. Yeah. And you probably know him because he's a senior wildlife biologist there in Penticton Region 8.
Yeah.
He's like my best bud. He's
nice.
A great guy. Yeah. So it was him that he was in Powell River here, living here with his family. He's working for an underwater logging company. And so we met through our wives, and he said, you're a helicopter pilot, you fly the Hughes 500, you're into hunting, you're into wildlife. He's like, how are you not doing wildlife capture? And I said, yeah, I sort of always wanted to do that, but I don't really know how to get into that. Same thing as when you're flying or starting out flying. It's one of those jobs you need the experience, but if you can't get that initial foot in the door, it's impossible field to break into. It's a specialized field for sure. There's a lot of little tricks and stuff and techniques and equipment and lots of stuff going on pretty fast.
So is there training involved in getting to something like this, or is it you just grip it and rip it and dive right in?
I've trained a couple of pilots up since starting Canadian Wildlife Capture. And yeah, we definitely do a bunch of training, and that's how I've gotten other pilots going, is by acting like I'll be the net gunner and I'll get somebody else to fly and I can walk them through it. And then quite often I'll get other new pilots to do the same. They'll come out net gunning or mugging and they'll see how it's done. Just because there's a lot, if you just go out and just to try and do it, there's a lot of unknowns. Just a lot of unknowns about everything. But if you see it done a couple of times, you're like, oh, okay, this is how it goes. And of course, every species, every terrain, there's all these different things that are learned, but along the way. But if you just get somebody to show you the first little bit, that takes a lot of the guesswork out of it.
Right.
So when I first started Canadian Wildlife Capture, I'd never even caught an animal, to tell you the truth. I just knew that's what I wanted to do, and there's nobody really that's going to walk you through it. And I knew I was going to go down a path. I was going to put down a lot of effort into it. And I didn't want to just do it through a helicopter company, work for a helicopter company and do it. I wanted to put a lot of effort into it, sort of make my own and see, and then I could be flexible, maybe who I hire and and make those calls as I saw fit. So that's how I ended up starting it. Yeah.
Man, I love that ambitious, goal-oriented mindset. You just jump right in, get your hands dirty, and figure it out. So what was your first animal capture like?
The very first
What kind of animal was it?
Bighorn sheep, California bighorn sheep, and that was close to your neck of the woods, maybe down in the Ashnola.
Oh yeah.
We were catching sheep for that Serapes testing. So that was probably in 2012. Well, it must have been 2012 when we started working on the project. That was the first one that I caught, and there were so many things. Like I say, that I was new to it. I knew I'd watched videos on YouTube, which limited they are, but trying to get a feel like how this happens. Wow, every single animal, every single situation's a little bit different. So the learning curve was pretty steep, but sheep are pretty, especially those California bighorns, pretty easy terrain, fairly wide open. Sheep love open areas, so they're fairly there's quite a bit of room to work with, so you can kind of set yourself up, make a nice approach. There's usually a hill there involved, so you can get the animals going fairly slow. Sheep don't run that fast anyways too, so it was good animals to sort of cut my teeth on, I guess you could say.
Yeah, man, that's got to be a pretty cool experience for the first time. So when you capture these animals, what's the process of capturing them? You mentioned net gunner and mugger. Walk me through that a bit.
A capture crew typically involves 2 people or 3 people. So you'll have the pilot, the net gunner, and then sometimes you'll have a mugger. So the mugger would ride in the front seat of the Hughes 500 beside the pilot. The net gunner, the way that we do it is the net gunner is seated in the back seat behind the pilot, so that the pilot and the net gunner are looking in the same direction, can see the animal's same direction of travel. The doors are off of the helicopter. Whatever it is, wolves, caribou, sheep, deer, goat, elk, whatever, you'd be out there, find the animals that you want to, whether you're doing netting bulls or cows or ewes or lambs or fawns or whatever. Find them in an area that you would have an opening big enough to capture them in. So you need some sort of area free of vegetation or timber so that you could get down fairly low and position yourself. Typically, I'm going to say that most of our shots from the helicopter would be 5 yards to the animal. The net gun will probably fire up to 20 yards from an elevated platform, but we want to be as close as possibly can. Not so close that when you fire the gun, the net wouldn't have time to open, but so usually about 5 yards. That'd be ideal. The closer you can get, the better shot you're going to have, the better the animal is going to get wrapped up in that net.
Oh, that's close.
It's super close. So the net gun is, the ones we're using now are a break action pistol with a single 308 blank cartridge. So it's just a 308 brass that's loaded with pretty much full of shotgun powder, crimped on the end, loaded into that pistol. The pistol is attached to a net basket, and the basket has 4 barrels on it. In each one of those 4 barrels is a steel weight, and then each weight is connected to a corner of the net. The nets that we use are usually a 12-foot by 12-foot square net, but sometimes we'll use 15-foot nets for caribou, elk, moose. Some of the bigger animals will use a little. Yeah, the bigger nets come out a little bit slower, especially when they get wet. So we like to use the little bit smaller nets but moose, of course, you need a bigger net for a bigger animal.
Yeah, no kidding. You guys, what happens if you miss? Does that ever happen?
Oh, yeah.
You just reload and keep going?
So we always have 2 guns ready to go, 2 net guns ready to go that are in a rack in the helicopter. So the net gunner would have 1 gun in his hand as you pull up the animal. Ideally, you fire the net gun, 1 net, 1 animal, you're good to go. But if it misses, or sometimes the animal will roll right out of the net. As soon as it tumbles once, and then it'll come out the other side of the net. That can happen. Or sometimes you miss, or you only get a corner of the animal, or the animal gets hooked on a tree, maybe the net, and the animal's able to sneak under it. Or it'll hook on the net on one side and a tree the other side, and the animal can turn around backwards and pull out of the net. So we'll have two guns. They're ready to go. If the first net doesn't work, the gunner can grab the other gun, fire the next net. It'll be ready to go. And if that fails, the net canisters, the canisters that have the barrels and the net, are detachable. It's just a hydraulic quick coupler that attaches the pistol to the net baskets, and we'll have like 4 or 5 or 6 baskets loaded with nets ready to go. So all they have to do is grab another canister, plug that onto the gun, grab a new blank, put that in there, and then you can be ready to go again.
Cool. I wonder what that animal's thinking when that net gets dropped on him.
Yeah, exactly. We talk about that. Yeah, what kind of alien is this that's catching me? And then I think lots of times they think that life is over for them, and sometimes some animals are all different, probably just like humans. Some of them fight like crazy the whole time. Other ones, they just give up instantly, and you try and release them and they just lie there and they think life is over.
Yeah, it's over.
They're all a little bit different, but yeah, sometimes you release them and they look back at you and you're like, what are you thinking? That must be just such an awful experience for them.
Yeah. Do you guys have to tranquilize them or anything like that when you're doing your work on them?
Sometimes we do some tranquilizing from the air, and then we would use a dart gun. So it's just it also shoots or use a blank, a 22 caliber blank, and it shoots a dart with the darts loaded with whatever kind of drugs you're using. So you use those for bears, and sometimes we've used them for sheep or moose, but typically we're just using net guns and then just physical restraint. So we'll just physically restrain them, get their front to back legs in a hobble. And a hobble is just essentially it's just like a heavy duty dog collar. 2 wraps around the legs, and then flip the animal over and do the other 2 legs. Put a blindfold on them. It's easier on the animals just to physically restrain them rather than using the drugs. The drugs are pretty hard on some of those animals, and lots of times you can reverse some parts of the drugs, but not all. And that animal will be sedated or slightly sedated for a few hours or a few days, and they can be susceptible to predation at that time. It's quite a longer process. So typically, if we net gun an animal to do basic sampling, so just your blood, hair, fecal, nasal swabs, ear swabs, and a collar, we're probably like 5 to 10 minutes maybe. Whereas tranquilizing, that animal's probably going to be sedated for half an hour, I would say. Probably it's a slower process.
Yeah, I was just thinking, it's no easy feat to hold down an elk or a moose, especially with those antlers swinging at you.
Nope, that's for sure. There's definitely a few bits that you need to stay away from, and you get to know, get a little knowledgeable on how to restrain them, or how what can keep them down on the ground and not allow them to get up, or definitely stay away from the pointy bits and the feet, the hooves, that's for sure. And the moose has got such long legs, they don't move real fast, but you could be 10 feet away and it seems like that hoof still gets you. So
give
you
you a
gotta
kick.
Position yourself got to position yourself in the right place at all times. Yeah, for sure.
You guys, you or your crew ever get any holes poked in you, or?
No, sometimes you get a couple of bruises here and there just from wrestling them, but we've had one net gunner there got bit by a wolf. Not very bad, but just tripped in the net. Like, it was a really small wolf, maybe like 50 pounds or something like that. And usually those ones are fairly timid and submissive when you net them, but this one, it was just really deep snow, and he got his foot caught in the net, and he just tripped backwards, and the wolf took the opportunity to give him a little nip right on the knee. Luckily, our suits that we wear have a bit of a padding in the knee, so it wasn't too bad. He continued working. Went to town, got some shot, but that was probably the worst injury that I can think of.
Nothing major then.
Yep.
How about crew and equipment? You guys must use some pretty elaborate equipment for these animal captures, and I imagine you're going to need a lot of hands on deck.
We've got 3 pilots and 5 net gunners, and usually we're running 2 helicopters 4 months of the year.
So you own those helicopters?
No. So I still am associated with Ocean View Helicopters, which is the same company that I started with back in 2002 when I started my flying career. They have 5 Hughes 500s right now. and they've always run Hughes 500 since like 1994. They're specialists in what they do. The Hughes 500 helicopters they have are probably the nicest ones in North America. They know the machines. They have lots of spare parts, really great engineers, good maintenance. And so I've stayed tied with them because it works. It relieves that complication, or I guess work and effort that is involved with dealing with Transport Canada, with dealing with the maintenance. And I don't think I could ever find machines that would be as nice and maintained as well as theirs. So the helicopters are owned by Ocean View, and then I'm still a pilot for Ocean View. Canadian Wildlife Capture, which is me, I acquire the contracts through provincial governments or universities or other groups, and then Ocean View provides the flight services. And then the net gunners would be employees of Canadian Wildlife Capture.
Oh yeah, I see. So
yeah, so that's how.
So when you acquire these, what is it like?
Works.
Are they through a bid process, or people just reach out, and how does that work?
Most of them are government funded, so then it goes through a bid process, a public bid process. There's a few other operators in British Columbia alone that do wildlife capture, but we seem to be doing the majority of it over the last 5 years. I would say we probably have like some of the most experienced crew, and they'll bid it competitively. Sometimes we'll do stuff for universities. University of Saskatchewan usually has a bit of a program. University of Alberta, we do a bunch of work for.
And you do it out. You do the work for them. You do it out in Saskatchewan and out in Alberta.
Yep, for sure. Yep.
So
Ontario, Toba. Yep.
For your helicopters and stuff, you guys just use. You partner with somebody out there.
Yeah, that's right. We'll park wherever is the closest to the work area, whether that's some outfitter's cabin, whether it's at an international airport, or some farmer's backfield. We're pretty mobile. All our gear can fit in there. We bring an extension cord, plug the helicopter in overnight. But yeah, we're totally mobile. Go wherever.
Oh, you got quite the crew now, 8 guys. So you constantly looking for guys, or what do you do for recruitment? You didn't start out with 8 guys.
No. A real key guy, Matt Strebchuk, there lives in just outside of Nelson. He had a bunch of experience working with another operator. And so I started with him back, I think, about 2014. And he introduced me to a couple other guys that he knew that had a little bit of experience. And for a net gunner, it's much the same as a helicopter pilot. The government contracts, they all want somebody that's experienced. And a lot of them they want guys that have 5 years experience, or some of it's the requirements are pretty steep. So it's incredibly hard to get new guys started. Where I've been fortunate enough to start a couple guys is through bigger contract that we have that would maybe last, say, like 30 days in an area. And I'd start them off as a mugger for the first year. And they just, ride around. They get to learn animal handling, get to know the different situations, and then get them into net gunning. Net gunning is not terribly hard. It's very instinctive. But there's lots that can go wrong. That's for sure. There's a lot of hazards there. So if you're putting somebody in the net gunning situation or in that position, you just got to make sure that they're comfortable with everything that's going on. Otherwise, I think it's very overwhelming just to throw somebody in there. But as far as like recruiting new guys, it's very rare. I'm still working with the same net gunners that I started with. 6 to 8 years ago.
That's a comfortable crew that size? Or you looking to expand, or?
That's comfortable. Yeah, for sure. If any, it seems I don't want to chase the work too much. When I started at Canadian Wildlife Capture, I actually was going to start it as a non-profit group, because it's not something that I make money as a pilot doing it. I don't really want to make money through Canadian Wildlife Capture. That was never my goal. I always wanted to do something that enjoyed doing, was passionate about, was beneficial for wildlife and conservation issues, but I never started it as sort of a profitable business. But some other friends, they advised me against that. And I'm glad that they did, because that's allowed me to be flexible, with any profit that we have made. So I've actually never taken any funds or money out of Canadian wildlife capture. We've put it all back into conservation and back into
awesome.
wildlife.
Yeah. Good for you guys. That's awesome.
I feel pretty fortunate. My wife's a rock star. She's supported me on that, and she's got a good job and career. So I've been fortunate that way, and it's been very rewarding, and it continues to grow. The last 5 years have been phenomenally gone really smooth, and we've had lots of work. We've turned away more work than we've done too. There seems to be lots of stuff, but to grow, I'd grow if I found the right people, and that's what I've been super committed to lately. Maybe the last 4 or 5 years. I did hire a couple people to try and get more jobs, to chase this and that. It didn't work out. It was just an absolute nightmare. And
I'm all too familiar with that.
If I had the right guy, right. It's some of those things I guess you learn over time, and that was a big lesson for me for sure. It was a really big lesson, and it was going down a path that I just didn't want to. And so if I found the right guys, like-minded people that were in it for the passion, because they're super interested in it, not because they're worried, or trying to be greedy, trying to make money off of it. If you can, I always say it's the best job in the world if that's what you're into. If that's what you're into, it's really good. Not to say that it's an easy job. There's a lot of challenges, lots and lots of challenges. But if that's what you're into, then it can be the best job. And the rewarding part of it is that we've been able to help purchase a bunch of conservation properties. And I think through Wild Sheep Society BC, I think we're getting close to almost $100,000 back invested through them, through their different conservation initiatives and projects. And it's really neat stuff. Really excited about that kind of stuff. And it seems to be, it's growing in leaps and bounds here over the last couple of years too.
So when you guys trap these or capture these animals, what's the point of the capture? What kind of surveys or tests are you guys doing on the animals?
Right, that's a great question, Kevin. Yeah, a lot of it is for different research projects or initiatives. It could be in support of population estimates for the different biologists, so that they can adjust hunting quotas, seasons, guide outfitter quotas, whatnot. It could be species of interest, which we've been working on quite a bit over the last few years, and that would be caribou. Caribou populations seem to be declining globally and in BC as well. So we've been doing lots of work with that. So they want to monitor populations and movements and effects of, disturbances, whether that's heli skiing, pipelines, roads, seismic lines. What effect does that have on caribou and wolves and moose and all the other factors there, which seem, it's outside of our sort of realm, but we're in support of that, that's for sure. And we also capture animals to do disease testing or monitoring, much like those California bighorn sheep. We've been doing that Seroptes project and seeing how that sort of spreads across the landscape and what kind of mortality you get from that. We've been working on the Southern Interior Mule Deer project extensively over the last 5 years. So we're pretty much putting collars on to see how the mule deer die and monitor health. And we do ultrasound to measure body fat in the different age classes of animals and see how maybe climate change could affect body fat over different years, and how burn and non-burn areas affect body fat for the mule deer as they're going into winter, how that affects the fawns, birth ratios. But the science is sort of outside of our work, but it's in support of that through the different biologists and different groups, different universities.
Yeah, that's quite diverse. So Do you guys do everything yourself, or do you take biologists out with you, or any of your clients? Do they come on these captures?
Quite often the biologists will come, and we invite the biologist to come out. One of them to be mugger. There's a couple biologists that do the net gunning in their own areas themselves. There's a couple in BC. I like it if the biologists come out because it's their area and region, their wildlife that they're managing. And I think a lot of the biologists love the field work. And I think as government biologists, field work, they get less and less of it. And they probably got into that field that they're in because they love doing field work. I think like a lot of government workers, they end up in the office a lot more dealing with bureaucracy and managing all kinds of stuff. Yeah. So I'd like to see or hopefully contribute, or hopefully that field experience contributes to the passion in their work. I try and encourage them to come out, see what's going on out there too. Because if they're not there on site in the helicopter doing the work themselves as well, then you're just taking down the notes, or you're just reading the notes that we've given them, or there's always that question of what's actually going on out there. Well, if they're right there,
you get
with
the hands-on or boots on the ground, definitely makes a difference for sure.
Yeah.
So, what other services do you guys provide?
We're doing aerial stuff for sure. That's kind of where we started, but we've been requested to do some other stuff too. So right now we've got a crew in Revelstoke. They're doing ground trapping of white-tailed deer. That has to do with the caribou project as well in that area. And we've been working on it for several years now. We always trap and collar and do some sampling on white-tailed deer in the Revelstoke area. Because the white-tailed deer there, I think, are maybe a relatively new species. There's some studies going on through the University of Alberta on measuring, are the white-tailed deer population in the Revelstoke area supporting a cougar population that historically wouldn't have been there, a cougar population. There has been some cougar predation events in that area on caribou. So it's a bit of there's some people working on some studies there. So we got that crew there doing ground trapping. We have aerially caught a few whitetails in that area, but the whitetails there live in the old growth timber just because it's such high snowfall area. And you can't get them to run out into an opening where there's, there might be 5 or 6 or 8 feet of snow. They won't ever leave the trees. You could chase them around with the helicopter until they died, but they'll never run out of the timber. They've never stepped foot out of that timber into an opening. So they just never, there's no trails for them or anything to run out into the open. There's just too much snow.
Does that make your guys' job more difficult if there's a lot of snow? I mean, besides not being able to get the deer out, but I mean, for you physically on the ground, if you run into a lot of snow, I could see that being an issue for you guys.
Not so much, no. Lots of times we'll do stuff up in Prince George, which is also a super high snowfall, like up in the mountains, doing caribou and wolves, and the snow, it slows the animal down quite a bit when you're pursuing them to get a net on them, which can help. There's some other difficulties. Like sometimes we've had snow so deep that, say, a caribou would be to the top of his shoulder. It'd be just powder snow, and just the head of the caribou is sticking up. Well, if you can picture trying to get a net onto that animal, well, the net just spreads out on top of the snow. So all you have is its head, and the net has a hard time getting down to its feet where it would entangle the legs and the hooves of the caribou and sort of inhibit its travel through the snow. So sometimes there can be too much snow, but that's pretty rare. That'd be pretty rare occurrence. More often than not, deep snow is good because it slows the animal down. It cushions their fall as well. So sometimes we're out net gunning on dry ground just because that's all you have. You're working in areas that never do get any snowfall, and there's always that risk of broken legs, dislocated hips, cuts and abrasions, stuff like that. So with the deep snow, you don't really have to worry about that.
Yeah. When do you guys do most of your captures? Is there a busy season?
Yeah, December 1st till April the 1st.
Oh,
So
really?
right now we should be balls to the wall out there doing stuff, but a lot of our work this year is committed to British Columbia, and the province is having a bit of trouble right now with the way the Wildlife Act reads, and that has to do with captures and pursuing with helicopters. And the lawyers, I think, are having a heyday with I don't know. It's a little frustrating being on our side of things. I think there's a lot of people working really hard to get things figured out, but other than the crew in Revelstoke and the cusp, our helicopters are sitting on the ground here, and all the net gunners are twiddling their thumbs. Unfortunately, but I'm sure here any day that we'll be out in the field. This is definitely prime time right now. So we were out doing a bunch of caribou captures up in Dease Lake, Watson Lake, Teslin earlier in late October and early November, and we were doing mule deer captures throughout the month of December in Kamloops, Grand Forks, and Penticton. But we're all finished that stuff for now, and we're just waiting to move on to the next few projects.
Oh yeah. So
as soon as we get the green light.
Yeah, it never fails there. I don't know. It just seems every time you turn a corner, there's some bureaucracy going on with their province. I don't know. It's just such a mess, but it's a whole nother
Isn't
topic.
that the truth, Kevin?
Yeah,
Truth?
whoever I talk
Yeah.
to, it's just that the topic of our province can, you could just sit and talk about it for hours. All the issues we got going on. I don't get it.
Yep. I agree, 100%.
Yeah, for everybody. So you got so once you get over that, you'll have 2021 should be pretty busy for you guys, I guess. But looking at the clock here, we've pretty much eaten up an hour. Is there anything you'd like to add?
Well, I was going to mention about that Fraser River Moby project, Wild Sheep Society BC.
Yeah, you bet.
I'm a big advocate of Wild Sheep Society BC. Really great guys, Chris and Kyle and everybody. And they've been so awesome at raising initiatives, raising funds, and going after stuff like that Fraser River Moby project, which is pretty exciting. Last year was the first year that I shouldn't say, I guess everybody's putting an effort in there in their own right, but the entire, members of Wild Sheep Society BC, so much effort, so much contribution from so many sides there. People trying to rid that herd, the Fraser River herd of its Moby, and last year we ended up taking an active role in it and euthanizing some active shedders, the sheep that are actively shedding the bacteria, and the result was so positive. We worked on a small subpopulation on the west side of the river, 50 animals. We caught every single one of those animals that was there, every single one, which was a task in itself. It's always easy to go catch a couple animals, but if you're trying to catch every single animal in an entire group, the challenges are pretty steep. Every single one, tested them all on site. The active shedders were removed from the population. There hadn't been any any lamb survival in that population for about 5 years. Well, this year, pretty much every single lamb that was born is still survived to this day. So, huge positive result from the efforts of the Wild Sheep Society BC. I can't say enough about those guys. Really good and on what they're doing. And
they're a great group. Yeah, that's quite the project. Yeah, I forgot about that one. That's really good. Yeah, that's no easy feat though, what you guys are doing, and man, that's quite the accomplishment.
I think the big, so it's proven that it worked. It was, proven in the United States. So that was the kind of examples that they were building off of. Is that in Hell's Canyon and in Idaho, and there was a place in South Dakota. I think they did the same thing where they didn't, you can't go catch every single sheep on the landscape, but you could pick away at it, year after year, get rid of those active shedders, and eventually clean out that Moby. But the thing that I think is most important for, moving forward is putting the pressure on the Department of Agriculture. Need some sort of permitting for domestic sheep farms in those sheep areas. And, it's pretty easy. You restrict domestic sheep in wild sheep habitat, or there's a permitting process to make sure that you got clean sheep, that they're Moby free, or double fencing requirements. And if we can get Department of Agriculture on board for that, and I know everybody's been putting a lot of pressure on them, but I think it's a topic there now, at least, if we continue to put that pressure on them, that'll prevent it happening again. Because all it takes is one farmer to decide he wants half a dozen sheep, to eat for a year to feed his family or something like that, to bring the movie back onto the landscape. So, everybody's efforts towards it could be just diminished just like that. So really important for keep that pressure on Department of Agriculture to get something in place. And I've written some letters, and they've written back and said that it's a complex problem, and I don't really buy into it. There's those three simple solutions that I put out there, and
for the people who are involved, who have the hands in the field and boots on the ground, the answers are a lot simpler than they sure get made out to be. Once you get all the politics involved, man, it sure creates a mess. I don't get it. I don't know why we just can't why we can't just listen to the science of it and say, hey, well, this is what needs to be done, so we're going to do it. Yeah. Painful.
So I think that's important, for your listeners out there. You guys listening, you're probably hunters, just like myself and yourself, Kevin. Yeah. Join a group, whatever group that is, whether it's Hunters for BCSCI or Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, Wild Sheep Society BC, Wild Sheep Foundation, GOABC, or Goat Alliance. Be a member. Get in there. Make that voice. Send a simple letter. It takes 5 minutes to send a letter. And there's people that hear that. If you guys that are listening, for sure, make your voice known. If you think that maybe white-tailed does shouldn't be harvested every year. That's a hot topic for sure. A lot of people I know, a lot of hunters.
Yeah, I had a conversation I had a conversation with Dave Ryder about that, about the white-tailed doe.
Yeah, definitely,
it's definitely a topic.
They listen. Well, I shouldn't say they listen, but they're public servants. They they listen to the pressures that are out there from whatever stakeholder. You might not get the response that you want, but it'll be heard. And if there's enough people that speak up, that's how things change.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the importance of the groups that you mentioned is, if you don't think that your voice will be heard, reach out to members, to the committee members of the organization that you're a member of, and they'll get those answers, or they'll make your point for you.
Yep. Super important moving forward. As hunters are a minority population in BC. If we don't take care of our interests, we're going to lose it. It's not a right; it's a privilege.
Absolutely.
And I think, so I think that's got to be like a really important set. There's probably differences, and then I think a lot of times as hunters, we divide ourselves due to interest, but we've got to focus on the similarities.
Yeah, unfortunately, in the hunting community, personal interest seems to take precedent with a lot of people over what's actually important. But I think, conversation can change all that, hopefully. That's the nice thing about these podcasts.
Absolutely.
Is you get to reach out to guys like you, and a lot of listeners that are listening today, they might never heard of the Canadian Wildlife Capture Program, but now they will.
Thanks for that privilege to talk there, Kevin.
Yeah, but okay, buddy, I'm gonna let you go here. It's been great talking to you. Before I let you go, where can people find you?
Google us. We've got a webpage, www.canadianwildlifecapture.com. Check us out. We've got a few pictures on there. I'm always leery about posting videos because somebody can always spin it in some other way, or they're not our projects. They are projects of the different groups. Mm-hmm. But we've got a website, got a lot of pictures on there, lots of information.
What about Facebook? You guys on Facebook, Instagram?
Yeah, we got a Facebook, Instagram. Yep. Just posted a thing on Instagram there on Canadian Wildlife Capture on Instagram, a little goat capture from a couple of years ago. I got tons of video. I should, post more little clips there. And seeing as I got a little bit of spare time here over the next couple of days, maybe I'll post some stuff there. So check us out on Instagram. Yep, Canadian Wildlife Capture.
Yeah, well, there you go. Yeah, you guys got a lot of neat stuff on Instagram there. I was checking out your pictures, so anyone listening want to go check them out, make sure you guys do that. But okay, man, I'm going to let you go, and it's been a lot of fun. Thanks again.
Yeah, thanks, Kev.
Okay, later.
You bet. Bye.